Good morning, guys. I know I've done a video of this car in Sepang, and yeah, that was just a gymkhana that Toyota organized in Sepang, right? But this, oh, thank you, Toyota. Thank you so much for making this car. Thank you so much. Thank you, Toyota-san, Akio Toyota. Yeah, if you ever chance upon this video, I just want to say a big thank you to Toyota-san. You know, he has been a harbinger of change for Toyota ever since he came on board. You know, created the LFA, you know, and this Yaris. You know, I mean, when was the last time you hear a story like this, where a car maker willingly produce a car making huge losses? Yes, it's expensive, and they make a loss for every car that they sell, because for such a low volume production globally, what, 25,000, and the only reason that we get to drive this car, or anybody get to buy this car, is solely because Toyota wants to go WRC to race, and they need to homologate a car for the road, right? In order to win a race, they have to lose money building cars that were supposed to be production car. And the last round I heard stories like this was what, early 2000s or the 90s, 80s, and this will be amongst the great rally legends. All right, the Lancia Delta Integrale, you know, the Audi Quattro, the UR Quattro, right? And what was that, the Ford, what was that model? I have forgotten. Ford RS 200. You know, those are the rally legends that were simply made for the road, solely because they want to go rally, they want to win races. All right. So yeah, another thing that I find it amazing that Toyota decided to call it is that Toyota decided to call it the Yaris, right? Because we all know that there is a certain Toyota turbocharged hatch from the 90s called the Toyota Starlet Turbo, and they could have easily just called this the Starlet, but they choose not to, you know. And that's the amazing part, whereby you have a little bit of like a underdog kind of charisma to it, because the moment you call it the Yaris, right? So from pictures, from videos, this car looks minute, it looks tiny, but it actually isn't. You know, it is not a small car by every measure. You can park this car next to a Volkswagen Polo or a Peugeot 208 GTI. You will notice this car is noticeably larger. All right. In fact, even when I sat in it with my height, 5'11", I get a full palm of headroom available from my head until the headliner. Right. It is not a small car. Right, and then you see the splitters, you see all this, the front splitter. You would have thought this car is very low riding, right? No. You can drive rather enthusiastically over speed bumps, and that gives a sense of driving enjoyment that normal hardly sprung cars or low riding cars aren't able to provide. This travel, look at the gap between the tires and the wheel arch. This allows people to enjoy the car even more, because when you have a proper ride height, you don't need to slow down that often, you know. So it is very nice. And the random people, let's look at the headlamp. All right, these are really beautiful, intricately designed headlamps. They're LEDs, of course. All right, but so there are no projectors and all that now. I think it's about time that I got used to headlamps that doesn't have a projector bulb staring at you like a retina, you know. So here we have some little patterns over here, unimportant. Anything that doesn't contribute to performance on this car doesn't really matter. All right, everything you see up front is derived for performance, all right, for airflow, for intakes, for cooling, for ducting air to the wheel arches, to divert air with the canards out here is for air, all right. And of course the stance of the car is also another thing worth mentioning, right? The car has a squat stance. Look at the flared, you know, the skirts, the side skirts out here, they're flared out. And of course the rear hunch that has become a stylistic this is now the classic style of this GR Yaris, you know, so noticeable even from afar, right? This is like an inverted stormtrooper helmet, all right. It just looks out of this world. It looks like nothing out there on the streets. And I like the chunky surfaces over here, the treatments, you know, the concaves that go in, and then this huge chunk houses the wheel, and then this one just straight cut off, and then there's some aero elements over here on top of the deck lid. There's some aero elements on top of here. It's just pretty amazing, all right. And of course, look at the roof. Oh yes, you know it means business, right? So it's a very, very good looking car. And if you look at the wheelbase, it is not as short as we thought it would be. Hence, initially everybody would have thought this car, being a small hatch, would be twitchy and all that, right? But it's actually very adjustable at the bends because the wheelbase isn't as short as it seemed to be. If you look at the window line, usually a hatchback would sort of have the boot lid over here, right? And if the boot lid is over here, this is like basically the last pillar, right? The C pillar. And if the boot lid is here and then the bumpers are here, the wheels ought to be here. This is how a normal hatch, two-door hatch proportion is. But if you look at this car, right, the front doors sort of end like half of the bulk of the car, so it's like exact half. It's more like the profile of a long coupe. If you look at it harder, I'm going to describe it like that now. If the roof line is lower, because I mentioned the roof is very low, right? Imagine the roof line is lower, and then from here onwards it does it the way of the 86, right? Can you see that? This is actually within the proportion dynamics of the current 86. I believe that. I haven't parked this next to an 86, but if I were to park one next to it, you will see what I mean. So what they did is this whole chunk hides the wheelbase and the original length and intent of it that could have been a coupe, but no, they want it to be a hatch because there is a Yaris hatch, and obviously it will help sell the Yaris, but it also gives the name Yaris a deeper meaning. Instead of just resembling an affordable hatchback, it has now another depth to this name. Yaris is amongst the legends, with the giants, right? That is a very smart move from Toyota. Boot space, not very large, doesn't matter, that's not the whole point, but you can fold the seats down, so it's practical. All right.
When I switched to Pro Mileage, in my case, I got 47% of savings for that car.
Pro Mileage was the only one that gave me 5,000 extra value to cover, yet still cheaper, a lot less. Turn up!
Rear seat space, unimportant, so unimportant that when you have a little lever over here, not very spacious, but also unimportant. Visibility of the rear seats, also unimportant, because what's important is the way this car drives, and it drives beautifully. Before I go into the cabin, I want to mention about the foot pedal placements. Alright, it is amazing. It is amazing. Alright, look at this little footrest over here. You use that more often than you thought you would. Right, the clutch placement, the height of the pedals, everything is just perfect. Alright, and yeah, you can blip the throttle so easily, and it's so reachable. There is a slight height difference there to cater to the angle of your feet, and it's just perfect. Alright, and I find these hanging types easier to blip than the organ type. Okay, come inside here. Door panel, simple but structurally very rigid. You have some Alcantara feel, a light material here, but they are not. I don't think they are. Maybe they are. Not unimportant. Carbon fiber, very nice. 000. This is the first in the world. Okay, you need to depress the clutch and the brake pedals together in order to start the car. So here, nothing much. You have a little holder, you can put your touch and go. This whole thing feels rather solid, very nice feel. And the whole molding of this, just really nice. You know, 3 levels. You can put some large bottles, comfortable to put your arms. Very nice. Some accents over here. Again, like I said, styling isn't important here. Okay, you get a nice heads-up display, you get clear dials, you can see where you're going, how fast you're going. See, dials like this, clean legibility is more important than, you know, design. So what I mean by legibility is, I would say the center has low legibility, these have high. That means one glance you can tell what you're looking at. Alright, now this car comes with lane keep assist and lane departure and all that. The moment you come out of the car, you need to hold this button and then to turn it off. Right, all these are off now, and then you need to press this button to cancel auto start stop, and then you're ready to go. Press OK. I don't have complaints because that's not the point of this car. I don't care if they stuck one huge giant thing here or they don't, it doesn't matter. This thing is really good. I was having my phone over there and I was driving like how a GR Yaris driver should be driving, and it stays there all the time. Very, very nice. And then you get another compartment over here, which is not rubberized like this. This is just slightly rubberized, you know. It's a hard piece of plastic with some patterns over there. Here, they need to house this component to turn sport track, you know, push it for normal, basically to change how the traction control reacts, the throttle pedal, and of course the 4-wheel drive system, how it reacts. Alright, that's to change all that. Gear lever, gear shift is amazing. It is super accurate, firm. Not as firm as the GT3 I drove the other day that belongs to my colleague Alex Wong. I drove his 997 GT3 the other day. That is even more precise, but this is a very good, one of the best industry benchmark already. Really, really nice gear shifter. Okay, nothing much to see over here, nothing much to see over there. The seats are really nice, grips me really well. The quality of the leather is so, you know, on par with like cars like Corolla and Civics and all that, but that's again not the whole point. Alright, and a proper manual handbrake lever, some cup holders, that's about it. WRC GR, right, Gazoo Racing WRC, developed for FIA World Rally Championship. Nice, right? And the placement, you know, see, from the steering back to the lever, short distance. That's again very impressive. The aircon vents are down here. All right, the emergency button, dash cam, some lights over here, and that's about it. Now this car is sold out, and if you want to buy one now, you can only buy used, and the used ones are 30-40 grand more expensive than the new ones. All right, and I think everybody should do that to cars. You know, when they are limited, you buy it off, and then the used car market will go up. You know, that's how it should be. All right, and the drive is just amazing. Okay, there are a lot of buttons over here, but I reckon you wouldn't be using them much. Now, is this car dailyable? Of course, it is as dailyable as a manual Myvi or a manual Vios. But what it does is that not only you can deal with your daily stuff, you know, the clutch isn't too heavy to drive daily or to drive in a traffic jam. Best of all, weekends you can drive this car out and terrorize some supercars. Drive safe, people. Again, we can have fun driving, but we must always remain safe. All right, yeah, that's the GR Yaris. What do I think about it? I think it's amazing. This morning when I drive it, I was like, okay, oh, at highway speeds there's a lot of, I term them as unnecessary reactions from the car. Like I was driving down the highway going about 130, 140, and then lift off the throttle, I feel that, and then apply the throttle, I feel that. I can hear the turbo releasing pressure, you know, keeps doing that. And then as I turn, the body roll a bit, I was like, okay, I prefer how the Megane moves, you know. And then when we were going uphill, my god, this car at any given speed, any given steering angle, that's the amazing part. Even when you're at a very tight steering angle, it is the kind of car where you can apply power and the power will find its way onto the road, you know, for you. That means whatever trajectory that I, not as a professional driver, is doing on public roads, it is able to accelerate that motion under any circumstances. It's just mind-bogglingly fast around the bends, around these twisty mountain roads, you know, a lot of inclination, you know, undulation and all that. This car is just amazingly fast, you know. On normal roads, on highways, and all that, of course it's not as fast as cars like the Golf R, you know, the A45S and all that, but again, that's not the point. This is a driver's car for them to enjoy negotiating the car through the bends, you know, rolling the gears themselves, feeling the turbo engine, you know, blipping the throttle, and then the reaction of the car, you know. So yeah, this is something amazing, something worth collecting. Yeah, 3 months, 4 months down the road, I mean, if you only ever have 300,000, I wouldn't recommend you to buy this car. Like if you've worked hard all your life and now you wanted to buy a car at around 300,000, that's your budget, right? I don't think this is the kind of car for you yet, because you haven't experienced a lot of other things yet, and speed can wait. All right, this car is not about absolute speed, it's about how speed was delivered. So a lot of buyers of this car, right, are those people who have had their Ferraris, their Lamborghinis, their Porsches, they even have tried McLarens. They are people who have tried front engine, mid engine, rear engine, and they want something different. They wanted an accessory, they wanted something that adds on to their experience, you know, to give them another dimension of joy. So they wanted speed, yes, but how was it delivered? And this car will be for them. Yeah, that's the Yaris GR. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and I have more than 1,000 videos in my channel. If you stumble upon this video, go check out my channel. And yeah, signing off.